Okay, so picture this. The year is 1998. You've got Bollywood movies obsessed with mustard fields, and the internet is just making that awful dial-up screaming sound for the first time. But deep in the Rajasthani desert, India was hiding a secret, and that secret was about to shake the entire planet.
So how do you actually do that? How do you get every single superpower, every news channel, every spy agency on Earth to stop what they're doing and look at you, all at the same time? Well, you do the one thing they all told you not to do. The one thing they were secretly betting you didn't have the nerve to pull off.
Yeah, we're talking 1998, a time that feels, I don't know, both a million years ago and kind of like yesterday, right? Especially when you think about how we got our information back then.
The internet was just a baby, making that, that sound, right? That dial-up screech. Information moved at a snail's pace. And that slowness, well, it turned out to be the perfect cover for what India was planning.
Yep, so underneath all that 90s noise, all the cultural shifts, all the new tech, there was this huge secret. A secret that was about to fundamentally redefine India's place on the world stage. All right, so to really get what happened in '98, we've got to rewind a bit. See, India's whole nuclear story, it didn't start with a big bang. No, it started with a promise of peace. Or at least, that's what they called it.
So right after independence, you have Prime Minister Nehru kicking off an atomic energy program. And he's insisting, hey, this is all for peaceful stuff. But then 1974 rolls around and we get the smiling Buddha test. I mean, what a name, right? It's just a masterclass in plausible deniability. The name says peace, but the explosion? That said, go ahead, try me. And yeah, the world totally freaked out. Sanctions got slapped on India, and for the next couple of decades, India went into this phase they called strategic restraint, which, basically means, okay, we'll play nice, but seriously, don't push it.
And this is a perfect way to think about where India stood during the Cold War, right? You've got these two massive global group chats going. Group A is the USA and all their friends. Group B is the USSR and their buddies. And India? India just muted both conversations. They called it the non-aligned movement, but really it was like political yoga. While everyone else was throwing punches, India was just, stretching, keeping its options open.
Okay, so fast forward to the 90s. The world is changing, and it's changing fast. And all these changes are creating this perfect storm, one that's going to force India to completely rethink its whole quiet kid strategy.
I mean, the Soviet Union just collapses, right? Like a group project where one person did all the work and then quit. The Berlin Wall is history, and suddenly America is kind of the self-appointed hall monitor for the entire planet. At the very same time, India's got its own messes to deal with, some really serious economic problems. But behind all that chaos, its scientists were quietly cooking up something huge. Okay, and this part is absolutely crucial to the story. India had actually tried to do this before back in '95, and this is kind of wild, American spy satellites literally caught them red-handed. So the whole plan had to be scrapped. Washington was feeling pretty smug, patting itself on the back. But India learned a massive lesson. If you're gonna pull off something this big, you better make damn sure nobody's watching.
And that brings us right back to 1998. There's a new government in town, led by Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and he gives the go-ahead, the green light, for what would be called Operation Shakti. And let me tell you, this was one of the boldest, most secretive missions in modern history. So how in the world do you hide a nuclear test from spy satellites that are watching everything? Well, it takes an absolute masterclass in secrecy. I'm talking scientists dressed up as army officers so they'd blend in. They use these super boring code words like plumbing work to talk about, nuclear triggers. And the real genius part? Everything, and I mean everything, was done at night, timed perfectly to hit the blind spots when those satellites were passing overhead. Incredible.
And then it happened. May 11th, 1998, 3:45 in the afternoon. All that planning, all that secrecy, it all paid off. Deep under the sands of the Pokhran desert, the ground itself just ripped open from the sheer force of this massive underground explosion.
And get this, it wasn't just one bomb, it was five. 5 separate nuclear devices all detonated successfully. And the rest of the world had absolutely no clue it was even happening.
Just like that, the secret was out. And the world's reaction was, well, it was immediate and it was intense. We're talking a full-on global meltdown. But back in India, a strange, remarkable calm.
I mean, this was the question bouncing around every newsroom, every intelligence agency, from DC to Beijing. Wait, how did India pull this off without us noticing? You could almost feel the shock. They had been completely, totally outplayed.
The international fallout was, as you can imagine, swift and harsh. The US acted like a disappointed parent, grounding India with a bunch of sanctions. Japan froze all its aid. China was, let's say, alarmed. And Pakistan? Well, Pakistan was pretty predictably provoked.
And yeah, provoked might be putting it mildly. Pakistan basically hit copy-paste. Just 2 weeks later, they tested their own nukes. And just like that, South Asia became the world's newest and scariest nuclear flashpoint.
So, in the middle of all this international chaos, all these sanctions being thrown around, Prime Minister Vajpayee steps up and makes this simple, really firm statement. There was no bragging, no aggression, it was just a statement of fact. India is now a nuclear weapon state. That's it. It was this announcement of quiet, solid, unshakable power.
So when you look back, what's the real legacy of Pokhran? Because it's about so much more than just the bombs, right? It was really the start of a whole new chapter for India on the global stage.
So what did it all mean? What did Pokhran really change? Well, first off, this was about confidence, not just technology. It was India saying, look, we are now a de facto nuclear power, and we don't really care what some official treaty says. It was a huge declaration that from now on, India's foreign policy gets made in New Delhi, not dictated from Washington or anywhere else. And maybe most importantly, it proved that all those decades of patience, that wasn't weakness. Oh no, that was preparation.
And you know, that might be the biggest lesson here. For years, the world saw India's strategic restraint and thought it was hesitation, maybe even weakness, but it wasn't. It was just the silence before the storm. It was all about preparing for that one perfect moment to finally roar. You know, the official name of the mission was Operation Shakti, which means power. And that fits. But looking back on it all now, you could have called it something else, something a little more direct. Operation Don't Mess with the Quiet Kid. Because as it turns out, sometimes they're the ones you really have to watch.